Hello, everybody, and happy Thursday. I'm here with my co-founder and colleague, Steve, and welcome to the SDR Sovereignty Podcast. And
Rock
we
and
are
roll.
here to rock and roll indeed. We're here to talk about a lot of really cool things, including today, where specifically we're talking about, beyond the inbox, how to really use SMS, email, and all of these channels in the best way possible to really just redefine guest engagement and kind of push guest engagement to the next level.
Are we talking about how to go beyond Slack too? You should probably just hit that do not disturb
Yeah,
button.
yeah. Let me do that right now.
That's you're getting lit up. But no, it's a really, I mean, it's funny just the timing of it all. But like we're being hit up in so many different directions, and the do not disturb button and the spam button and all the ways that people are filtering out are
Yeah,
very real. So how do you get into somebody's mind space in a way that is actually helpful and helps you build that relationship so you can build your STR business? That's what we're all about. So we're going to talk about that today.
yeah. Way to get right to the meat and potatoes, man. Way to get right to it. That is what we're here to talk about today, and how to cut through the noise, um, and how to make sure, everyone gets bombarded with emails all the time. You get a lot of text messages, you get a lot of work notifications, personal notifications. You're just kind of like attacked from all sorts of different angles by notifications and offers and messages. And the importance is to really make sure that the content that you're sending out to guests, especially for marketing and offers and things of that nature, is stuff that lands in their inbox, but actually lands in their inbox in a way that it doesn't like stay and get stuck in their inbox, but it goes from their inbox to the conversations they're having, to the decisions that they're making, and to sort of the travel plans that they are working on, and really just kickstart some of those events and set some of those events into motion that will result in a repeat booking.
Yeah, it's interesting, right? You can start in someone's email inbox, but unless you reach their decision-making process and unless you reach their mind and their heart, you are literally just another thing that they're trying to delete. So the more personalized you can make it, the more targeted you can make it, even if you're sending an email, it's still one of the most effective channels because we all use it to manage our lives.
Yeah.
And so this isn't to say you shouldn't send email. It's to say you should send the right email at the right time and also use other channels. I mean, those Slack notifications were nuts, man. You were getting lit up. But
yeah, it was like 7 in the span of like 3 seconds.
Right, as you were introing the podcast. But where else are you or your guests getting their notifications? How can you be front of mind in a way that doesn't bug someone? But honestly, we're not so much on the don't bug someone front as we are on the connect with who they are and what they want front. That's
Yeah.
what matters.
Well, I think that touches on a really cool, or really important principle, which is, it's really hard to avoid getting messages and sending marketing messages out altogether. If you want to build your brand and you want to build your business, you need to be you need to be doing marketing. It's that simple. But what you can really impact and influence is how effective that messaging is and how effective those notifications are and the things that land in people's inboxes are. And that's the difference between something like an email blast to 1,500 or 2,000 or 5,000 people or whatever, which just goes out to your whole list and everyone that's ever stayed with you and everyone that's ever interacted with you before. Like, not really personal. You might have a couple cool pictures in there, and it might be engaging. It might look good. You might have a really nice template that you put together for the holidays or for some upcoming event or whatnot. But chances are that it's too generic to actually make an impact and drive a conversation. So it's more about sending the messaging and sending the content that is going to drive a conversation. So let's just take a use case, for example. In Boston, you've got a couple of ski areas within about 2.5 to 3 hours. From Boston, you can drive up to Sugarbush or Stowe or Sunday River or whatever. And oftentimes, Unless you're doing a family trip with your kids and your spouse and so on, and booking a slope side thing, a month or 2 months in advance to get some sort of discount, a lot of the times that you end up going skiing are very contingent on conditions. And if you're an operator and you have, a bed and breakfast or some, let's say 20 units, like 5 minutes away from Sunday River, uh, what would be much more effective to you is to, hit up the people in Boston that have stayed with you in the past. And you can do this based on their zip code or their area code or calling code or any of that, and tell them, hey, we just got like a foot of snow. We're expecting a foot of snow this weekend. You've stayed with us in the past. We're more than happy to offer you this 10% discount if you make a booking with us right now, and stuff like that. Even though it is just another thing that ends up in the inbox, it's much more contextual and it's much more personalized, and in many ways, like, much more relevant to what that the recipient is thinking about or contemplating as they get those messages.
Yeah. And here's an interesting one. A lot of, especially brand conscious operators, are going to look at a fancy email newsletter builder and kind of salivate a bit. They're like, oh, I want it to look really nice, and I want that to look great. But the fact is, the more HTML, right, the more code you put into your email, the likelier it is that that email will be diverted from the inbox, because you usually don't get mission critical emails with a ton of HTML in them. And the servers have figured that out over time. And so they divert them to, less important folders. And so the impulse to make a beautifully designed thing to invite people to come skiing is really strong. But to get that inbox, to get that connection with that person and actually reach their mind and heart and decision-making process, you might even want to use less styling and have it be more of a person-to-person message.
Yeah, that's really true. If you look at inboxes like Gmail or Yahoo or Outlook, they group everything by topic, and like HTML heavy emails always go into promotions, which are really, like, they just don't end up being nearly as visible as just, a couple of lines of text with an offer. Like, those will land in the inbox. Like, if it looks like a personal email from one human being to another, and if it feels like a personal email from one human being to another, it will show up in the priority inbox, like, the vast majority of the time. If it looks like a very promotional email with a lot of formatting, a lot of HTML, a lot of structure and images and embedded stuff and all that, it will almost always end up in promotions. And human behavior, like, behavior is such that people don't really open their promotions folder more than like once a month to clean it out. So, you really want to be landing in the guest's primary inbox and not in their promotions inbox.
So do that with simpler design. Do it with better targeting. Yeah. This is something that I am just exploding over right now. The fact that if we just kind of rewind the clock a bit to how software got started, the ability to suddenly do things at scale was revolutionary. Like, you used to have to write things out by hand, and then suddenly you could print them, and then you could mail merge, and then you could do a whole bulk mailing, and then that was like limited to the physical world. And then when email made it possible to do a bulk mailing but digitally, it revolutionized business and how people communicate. And we are in another one of those revolutions now, because the whole idea of set up this giant blast and then blast it is from the old days of bulk mail, where you basically had to take your best guess about the message that would work for everyone and send it to as big of a list as you could, but not too big so that it still stays relevant, and then hope that it worked. We are in a different era now.
I feel like you're eerily teasing something that we're about to release over at Yada.
Oh, am I?
Are you now?
Why don't you tell everybody what we're working on?
Well, it's not ready to go live yet, but it should be in the next couple of days. And it's this really cool product that we call Signals. And it takes a really novel new approach to marketing in the STR and in the hospitality space. We're taking a really, really big leap beyond mass email and mass text. So what Signals does is it connects to every previous reservation that you've had, every piece of guest data that you have, and your calendar going back a couple years and your calendar going forward a couple years. And it tries to match any sort of calendar availability opportunities that it sees with the right guests for that opportunity. So to use the word signal, it'll keep on going through the calendar every couple of seconds, every couple of minutes, comparing that against a past guest behavior and when they booked and where they booked and how far in advance and where they live and all of that type of stuff. Includes all sorts of local information like weather conditions, proximity to attractions, and so on. Then surfaces signals and builds these signals that can get sent out automatically to the guest or through an approval process that let you deliver these incredibly smart, targeted, hyper-personalized messages to the right guest every single time. So like that ski example that that was one of the things that we saw with some of our early users this week was folks being able to surface the fact that a lot of resorts in northern Vermont are getting an unexpected amount of snow this late in the season, and get some bookings up from Boston that otherwise might have sat it out and might have waited until next year to get back on the mountain.
Because if you think about the ideal setup, it would be a person going through every single past guest and saying, what do we know about them? What do they like? What would make their day? What message can we send to let them know that we can make their day, to encourage them to book with us? Now, I say that's ideal because that was the best that we used to have, was a person doing all those things. And that would take a lot of time. And, fancy brands with a guest services team would do that. You call past guests and check in on them. That's what travel agents used to do. And you kind of build that relationship, you build that knowledge base, and then you send offers based on what you know about that person at the times that they might be interested in taking action. But now with AI and with the amount of data that we have available to us as STR operators and software companies, we can replace that person who, quite frankly, was very expensive to have, going through the whole guest list, with a machine that can figure those things out, right? The level of intelligence is there to make those calls and send those messages, especially with something as low stakes as marketing, where it's like, hey, does this interest you? If there's an 80% chance that it will, I'm going to go ahead and send that message.
Right. Low stakes for the guest, but really high stakes for the operator. Because even if 1 or 2% of those
high impact
result in a conversation, the impact is super high.
Yeah. I say low stakes because it's not like a unhappy stay or a bad review on the line or something like that. Right?
Yeah. I think that's also important to note. Like, reaching out to past guests has zero consequences at all. Like, there's nothing bad that could happen. You might have a couple percentage of a couple people that click unsubscribe, but that's totally fine. That's expected. That'll happen with every campaign ever for everyone. But because it's super low stakes, because it's reminding folks of a fun transaction, like a fun experience they had and a fun memory they had, and hopefully of a really great time that they had in the past. I think a lot of operators are going to find a very good response rate and a very good, very receptive audience towards getting these messages of offers and events and things like that get them to rebook.
So let's talk about that, because on the one side, you want things to be super targeted. You want things to be super personal and relevant. But also, let's say you're not using Yada. Let's say you don't have Signals to rely on, but you're just sending emails generally. One thing that I've seen work really well lately is things that you are excited about, things that you're proud of, that you want to share with the guests, something personal for them to connect with. We're setting up an email right now for an operator who recently remodeled one of their units. And they're like, I am so pumped about this. And it plays great, man. The email that we're able to put together over, hey, you stayed in this place before, and now here's what it looks like. That's a great piece of content to share. And it doesn't have to be super fancy. That's the sort of thing that you would share with someone that you liked. You're like, hey, you're part of my life. Take a look at this new thing. I'm pumped. That's a good way to connect. If we're talking about going beyond the inbox, it's about focusing on that relationship between people.
For sure. Focusing on the relationship. And I think what you're able to do now, which has never been democratized to this point, is to do that level of personalization at a high degree of scale. Like, to your point earlier, the previous world of how operators would do this is non-existent, because first off, like, very few people in the SDR space were doing these were activities that were pretty much only limited to very high-end luxury travel and hospitality brands. Like, Four Seasons for sure has a sales team that, you know, looks after people who spend $50,000 or $100,000 a year with them. And
I'm gonna say I've stayed at a fancy place. I've never gotten a phone call, but I guess I haven't.
Maybe you haven't spent enough money with
minimum.
them. But there's definitely, like, that practice is definitely there. It's just that, the importance is democratizing it, that, and bringing that practice out to everybody else. And like, sharing the enthusiasm is really key. So, like, very highly formatted. Like, I just want to loop back to the inbox and, like, getting things into the inbox and read. So, like, moving beyond the inbox, I guess, into the consciousness of the person receiving the email. Like, sharing that enthusiasm in a really human way is really important. So again, like, a really, like, thoroughly beautifully formatted piece of content is not nearly as human and as enthusiastic as a note that says, like, hey, thanks so much for staying with us in the last couple of years. We recently remodeled, we redid the pool, we redid the hot tub. We have availability for next year. Please let us know if you're interested. And it works, like, much more than just, hey, here's our portfolio. Let us know if you want to book. Here's our number, 1-800, call us now.
Yeah. So we've talked a bit about email. Obviously, we could go on and on about this. Sending a targeted email based on someone's interest, acknowledging that interest, that's always going to perform better than anything else. And at the same time, email is kind of, it's a bit of a mess in there for most people. The channels where it's not as messy include SMS, WhatsApp, obviously Slack, if that's more of a work thing. You're not probably not going to have your STR Slack community, but there's a handful that are just very focused, where people go to for information, where they go to for high bandwidth conversations. Communities about your location would be other places where you could provide value and communicate with past or future guests. But I want to zero in on WhatsApp for a second, because we actually have another exciting announcement here. Let's talk about WhatsApp. What's the announcement and why does it matter?
Well, we're rolling out Yada for WhatsApp for Business. So all of our customers and all of our users that are on Yada, or that are going to be on Yada in the very near future, can start sending out marketing messages through WhatsApp for Business. So email and WhatsApp for Business, or email and SMS, or email, SMS, and WhatsApp for Business.
And why is that a big deal? Why is that going to help people grow?
Well, it's a big deal for two reasons. And reason number one is that these inboxes, like WhatsApp and SMS, get a ton of engagement, like way more than email. The open rates are orders of magnitude higher. The conversion rates, the engagement rates, like, everything is significantly more enhanced on WhatsApp and SMS than it is on email. That being said, the downside is that if you're messaging folks through WhatsApp and through SMS and these very, very personal channels, the content that you send them has to be correspondingly personal and correspondingly relevant. So if you get a random text message or a WhatsApp that seems like a blast message, that's probably not going to work as well as something that's really relevant and really specific to you and really personalized. So the other part of it is the tying in of WhatsApp and SMS into signals, and making sure that when we send WhatsApp messages or when we send SMS messages, they're very intelligently sent. It's not, a blast to 6,000 people, like, hey, come back. It's a very targeted message to a very targeted segment and a very targeted audience with a very specific offer that's going to be very relevant to that person. And if you talk about marketing and hospitality in general, and really, like, how to elevate marketing within hospitality, supreme personalization is of the utmost importance there. Because if you look at a hospitality transaction, or booking a room or booking a property or something like that, that is generally a much more personal and a much more fundamental and profound decision for a lot of buyers than buying like a pair of shoes or a water bottle or something like that. So correspondingly, the content that you sent them has to be equally personal and smart, and just showing them that you're listening to them, that you have them in mind for the right offer, and that they're just not one person in a list of 5,000 people, but that they're somebody that you've built a relationship with previously.
That's huge. And in terms of the content, SMS, WhatsApp, it's got to be short. It's got to hit hard. It can be multimedia. You can have an image in there, maybe a Giphy. Not a
GIF.
Giphy. GIF? It's a Giphy?
GIF? I don't know.
Skippy? Is it a Skippy?
A Skippy?
It's called Skippity, right? No.
No.
We're not there yet. You can put content in there, but it's not going to be a big newsletter. It's going to connect with that person, hopefully on an emotional level, and at the very worst, it's going to remind them of what a great decision they made staying with you before. And so it's an opportunity to send a single image that evokes that feeling of possibility and of desire to have that experience with you again. So just getting back to the simplicity of powerful messaging, I think that's even more important when you're talking about channels like WhatsApp and SMS that are in people's pockets, that they get those notifications for.
Yeah, and that's equal. Every travel and every trip is an opportunity for somebody to remember it in the future. You travel and you go on vacations and you go to cool destinations to make memories. And if you can be reminded of that memory in a specific and empathetic and smart way, like, you're not just receiving a marketing email, you're receiving a memory, and you're receiving the opportunity to recreate a memory and to have that memory and have that great experience again. So like that's really what hospitality marketing is. It's not a reminder of a transaction, or it's not really a push for a new transaction. It's giving the guest and the traveler an opportunity to make another memory, and making it really easy for them to do that.
That's beautiful, man. That's beautiful. Yeah, because we've been talking about channels and strategy and all that kind of stuff. But in the end, it's the human connection, and it's the invitation to make more memories with your business, and showing that you're the one that folks should make that choice with.
Exactly.
All right. Well, thanks for listening. We will be in touch next time. And if you want to take a look at signals for either SMS, WhatsApp, email, it goes out through all those channels. Hit us up. We'd love to chat with you. We're at yada.ai, and talk to you next time.
Until next week.